I mean, everything I said is correct. It's how the American people feel. It's what we know to be a fact. It's all the evidence has been proven true. We have Jamie Raskin in there accusing us of worshiping Trump, worshiping as a convicted felon. He is a convicted felon. Well, yeah, so is George Floyd. And everybody, and you all too, the media worship George Floyd. Democrats worship George Floyd. There were riots burning down the country over George Floyd, and Raskin is in there saying we worship him. Excuse me, let me correct you, and this is really important. I don't worship, I worship God. God. And Jesus is my savior. I don't worship President Trump. And I'm really sick and tired of the bullshit annex I have to deal with constantly from the Democrats. So that's what we just went through in there. And then they're sitting there, they can attack my character all day long. What's his face in there? Whoever was talking last was calling me insane, but yet we can't say, oh, they're attacking my character. Oh no, it's nonstop BS and annex. You want to know why? The Democrats don't have anything. They're responsible for the lockdowns, forced vaccinations, kids being forced to stay home, people committing suicide, and all the horrors that this country lived through during COVID. Fauci belongs in prison. He should be tried for mass murder, and he should be tried for crimes against humanity. That's how I feel after that hearing. That's how the American people feel.
This felony conviction really has MAGA reeling. And even though Marge caught feelings over being described as worshiping Donald Trump, she does have a track record of deifying him.
We will never back down, and we will stand in support of our very incredible, amazing, best president in history of my lifetime, and innocent, and I mean, think about this. President Trump is joining some of the most incredible people in history being arrested today. Nelson Mandela was arrested, served time in prison. Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government.
I guess no worshiping Trump there, just comparing him to Jesus. Oh, and filling up the crotch of a cardboard cutout of him.
I gotta do one more thing. I always do this. I just love this guy so much. He is. He's fantastic. This guy right here is great. Standing up in there in the mucky swamp. Diane always has him in the mucky swamp. Yeah. But it's amazing.
It's wild how belligerent, privileged people act when they're faced with consequences for their actions for like the first time in their life. You know, all this happened at the House Select Subcommittee hearing on lessons learned from the pandemic, which I guess Republicans interpreted to mean angrily promote the same conspiracy theories to deflect attention away from Donald Trump's incompetence. But they should have known by now that they'd get some pushback.
Dr. Fauci, I want to join my colleague from Florida in apologizing to you that some of our colleagues in the United States House of Representatives seem to want to drag your name through the mud. They're treating you, Dr. Fauci, like a convicted felon. Actually, you probably wish they were treating you like a convicted felon. They treat convicted felons with love and admiration. Some of them blindly worship convicted felons.
That was the mild line that had Representative Greene ripping her hair out and cussing all through the building in the Lord and Savior's name. But this is the same governing style of the MAGA Republican Party. Bark Trump-approved conspiracies at people like Dr. Fauci just to make sure he's the next boogeyman for campaign attacks. You have to ask yourself, what else is the purpose of exchanges like this when they claim this is about learning lessons from the pandemic?
Especially when the NIH and these government agencies, most powerful agencies in our country, are recommending medical suggestions and advice and making up guidelines like 6 feet distancing and masking of children. Do you think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. I want to talk about this right here.
Mr. Chairman,
Fauci,
objection. Objection.
I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Raskin.
Gentlelady will suspend.
It's obviously a shout out to her MAGA supporters that she's just as antagonistic as she's always been. You know, honestly, who cares that you don't want to call Dr. Fauci a doctor during your 5 minutes of yelling? I guess apparently Democrats.
Mr. Chairman,
Point of order.
Just in terms of the rules of decorum, are we allowed to deny that a doctor is a doctor just because we don't want him to be a doctor?
Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked, and he belongs in
Gentlelady will
prison.
suspend. The gentlelady should recognize the doctor. as a doctor.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, is this what we have become? Is this what we have devolved into? No decorum.
You know what? We can do that hearing about the poor men that were injected with syphilis, because I support you in that. That's horrific.
Maybe there's something to congressional rules about this stuff, but I really don't see why forcing Greene to call Fauci a doctor is necessary enough to stop her from embarrassing herself. It doesn't really matter if she doesn't want to call him a doctor. It's their vicious targeting of him and his family's lives that actually need to be addressed.
Dr. Fauci, can you please share with us the nature of the threats you have received since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, there have been everything from harassments by emails, texts, letters of myself, my wife, my 3 daughters. There have been credible death threats leading to the arrests of 2 individuals, and credible death threats mean someone who clearly was on their way to kill me. And it's required my having protective services essentially all the time. It is very troublesome to me. It is much more troublesome because they've involved my wife and my 3 daughters.
At these moments, how do you feel? Keep your mic on.
Terrible.
Do you continue to receive threats today?
Yes, I do. Every time someone gets up and says I'm responsible for the death of people throughout the world, the death threats go up.
Anyone knows that piece sitting behind Fauci while he details how his wife and daughters have been subjected to death threats because of MAGA's politics of violence? Did y'all see him?
Everything from harassments by emails, texts, letters of myself, my wife, my 3 daughters. There have been credible death threats. Credible death threats mean someone who clearly was on their way to kill me. And it is very troublesome to me. It is much more troublesome because they've involved my wife and my 3 daughters.
So they say they have an issue with people dying. But when innocent people are targeted with murder over MAGA politics, people like that guy like to mock the victims. Everything that they're offended by is a sample of their daily output of energy towards others. They've been conditioned to abandon their humanity and follow MAGA politicians and pundits because, again, the Messiah directed his flock to openly believe his propaganda channels.
Well, perhaps the best comment on the Fauci reemergence was from Clifton Duncan on X. He wrote, "Your business went under while Fauci went to baseball games. Your mother died alone in a nursing home while Fauci did photo shoots. Your child hanged themselves from despair while Fauci hobnobbed with celebs. People got divorced. People severed lifelong friendships. People lost decades-long careers. People were trapped with abusers. People overdosed and killed themselves. People lost out on proms and graduations. People lost loved ones that could have been saved. People are injured by a shot they didn't want, all because we decided to trust the science, that, of course, being Anthony Fauci, according to Anthony Fauci. We can never, and I mean never, let happen to this country again what happened under him. We're going to be paying for the Fauci effect for a generation, perhaps more. His imperiousness on the Hill today is simply further evidence that he was the wrong man at the wrong time to help formulate a common-sense plan to deal with the Wuhan flu.
Laura Ingraham is acting like Fauci was the president. You know, it's convenient how they never mentioned who the president was in 2020 when tons of Americans died due to the virus while Trump ignored the problem. Marge would be that guy sitting in the audience mocking death threats, except she's in office on subcommittees where she can try to make their hostility a standard policy.
We're not a serious country anymore. We're literally a banana republic. So what does it matter funding the government? The American people don't give a
Yikes. There's some more of God's cuss words from one of his disciples, pitching to defund the government over Trump catching a couple hundred cases. It's always about the politics of protecting Donald Trump, who consumes his surrogates' identities and makes them humiliate themselves with easily disprovable accusations.
3 days later, on February 4th, 2020, 4 participants on the conference call authored a paper, Proximal Origin, which was sent to you for editing. Proximal Origin pushed the natural origin theory. On April 16, 2020, the NIH director, Dr. Collins, emailed you expressing dismay that the Nature Medicine article, which was based on proximal origin, didn't suppress the lab leak theory, and asked you for more public pressure to suppress the lab leak theory. My question to you, sir, did you cite this article at the White House because the NIH director asked you to suppress the lab leak theory?
I did not do that in response to anybody's suggestion to suppress anything. It was in response to a question that someone asked at the podium. And I did not edit any paper as shown in my official testimony. So you said about 4 or 5 things, Congressman, that were just not true.
Well, we have emails to prove it.
Well, you don't.
Thank you, and I yield back.
I now recognize Mr. Mfume from Maryland for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And by the way, no, we don't have it. So I get tired of hearing we've got it, and then when we ask for it, it's not there. We do not have it, Dr. Fauci, and for everyone watching this. That's just incorrect.
That's the purpose of these hearings, to blatantly lie and move on without proving their outrageous claims, because the lies have already been distributed, all for a guy that rages over opposition to his demands. You know, Trump is already well known for turning on his own people to shield himself from accountability. So we should listen when he keeps telling us over and over and over again that his main target is America.
They don't want to be indicted by these scoundrels who are much more evil than people. I'm telling you, China and Russia, they're not the problem. We have a problem from within that's really bad.